thanks, Minister, for bringing this legislation to our committee today. And I suppose at the outset, I want to thank you, Minister, and Minister O'Brien and Minister McGrath. You've all been very responsive to my representations and the representations from other senators on behalf of our local authority members. And I'm very encouraged to hear that the Moorhead report is finally and long overdue, but I believe and hope that Cabinet will sign off on it today. And I think that's good news. It's an important signal to send to our local authority members. They are invaluable to their communities, but they're invaluable to our democracy. They are on the cold face of our democratic process. They are the go-to person in their local communities, on their streets, in their villages and towns all around the country. And right throughout the pandemic, they have been fronting government response, local authority response, and the efforts that they've put in and the support that they've provided for their communities could never be really properly dealt with in a monetary sense. But I do think it is important that this government recognises their contribution, values it, and that the Moorhead report and the implementation of it should go a long way to beginning to do that. In terms of this pre-legislative process, I welcome it. I am acutely aware that it was a very tight vote. I was very disappointed that at the time we weren't having a plebiscite in Dublin. I spent a good number of years living in New York City, and over a period of a decade or so, I suppose, I got to see up front how impactful a directly elected mayor can be in a city of almost 10 million people and 5 boroughs with only 51 councillors. Directly elected mayor can have enormous impact, both supporting communities, supporting the economy, but really championing the city and the county. So I'm really disposed to this concept, but I am also acutely aware that our local authority members, their powers have been greatly eroded over recent times. And if this is to be a success, not just for Limerick, but for our democracy and our country, it has to have incremental value to our democratic process. It's not enough for it just to be a new office created, a new role created. It has to demonstrate to the people of Limerick and to the rest of the country that there's an incremental value here. And I suppose one of the comments and the concerns that has been expressed to me is that this is a precursor to a further eroding of the local authority members' powers, and that it will lead to a reduction in the number of local authority members in the city and county. And I'd like you to address that issue. I suppose the point was made to me that in that New York model, where you've got 5 boroughs and the 8 million people or so, there's only 51 councillors with one mayor. And in comparison, then Limerick City and County, with a population of about 94,000, there's 41 councillors. And that is a concern. And as I said at the outset, the local authority members who are elected are the representatives of the people of Limerick City and County. They are the expression of the democratic will. So I'd like you to address that straight on, that point. And secondly, I would like to formally propose, Chair, to you that we as a committee, I've listened to the Minister, and I think the Minister has very sincere intentions to take the potential of this legislation to enhance the democratic process and to strengthen local democracy in Limerick and to create a model that can be replicated in other parts of the country. But I think, Chair, we need to, as a committee, also engage directly with the currently elected local representatives in Limerick City and County in our pre-legislative process. And let's hear from them and let's engage them in this process, because the timeline, Minister, it sounds to me that we actually have a bit of space in terms of the timeline. And I think we, Chair, as a committee need to engage in that and engage directly with the elected members and invite them to participate in the pre-legislative process. Gormagad.
Thank you, Senator Fitzpatrick, and absolutely I'll acknowledge your work and your representations on the role of our local authority members in relation to specifically their pay and conditions. I appreciate the engagement from you and your colleagues in connection with it. First of all, in relation to you just mentioned there in terms of engagement with the council, we've done a good bit of that. But absolutely, I think one key thing for the committee would be as well Tim O'Connor, the chairperson of the Implementation Advisory Group, and the members of the advisory group. It will be very interesting for your committee to hear their views, because to be fair to them, they've done huge engagement with the citizens of Limerick down there in very, very exceptional circumstances through COVID. So I really acknowledge their work, and they are very impressive. And what really shone a light to me is that their attendances was so high for all the meetings. They were really so engaged in the process, and I had the honour of addressing them on a couple of occasions. So it was very interesting indeed. Absolutely, we do not want to reduce in any way or dilute the powers of our local authority members, and we're not proposing to do that in any shape or form. I really value in terms of that, as I said, local government is the closest arm to the citizen with all the services that they do provide, and we really want to strengthen that and support it, not really dilute it. And that's why having the role of a new democratically elected executive head of a local authority is really providing huge powers right locally on the ground at the doorstep of the citizens of Limerick. And that has to add value. Absolutely. I think we have to be so key and focused on that the citizens of Limerick have to see value to this office, that it's not just an office, because in a way anyone can provide an office in terms of the governance and structure, but it's the powers of that office, it's the mandate and the means that go with it to ensure that it can deliver on the mandate that the people of Limerick City and County actually bring to it. So I think that's very important too. And I wouldn't see a reduction in at this point, absolutely not, in terms of the councillors or council members down there. And I think it's very pointed that you did reference in terms of our local authority members. They did achieve so much through COVID. And I remember at the very start of our community call how quickly our 31 local authorities mobilised and supported citizens, some very vulnerable, to get key services out to them and deliveries from chemists and shops, etc. I had the privilege of addressing the Dublin one with the team there. And you could see, in terms of the underlying social problems that were growing through the pandemic that they were dealing with, and having actors in from TUST and all these various organisations and social workers feeding into the process was great to see. So I think a huge amount of respect has to go out to our local authority members and what they achieved at that period of time.